What up? It's your boy Nick Incredible, man. And yes, I am back at it again. And yet again, I find myself apologizing because I took another brief hiatus, man. But honestly, I feel like YouTube is against me uploading content, man. For the past couple weeks, my eye has been swollen and I really couldn't see anything out of it, man. So that was an ordeal for me. But I am finally back, man. And this is 911 Lone Star Season 3, Episode 3, Shock and Thaw. And to be fair, I think we can all agree that we hate Billy. Let's talk about this episode, man.
Yo, fight until you make it, yo, don't think it, no, just take it. Don't wait for someone to break it, take control, then don't just take it, hey. You can make it happen, you just gotta take some action. Take the ship and be the captain.
This episode, yet again, is a continuation of the season opener where we're still dealing with the snowstorm, but this episode kind of feels like everything's kind of been resolved except for TK and Owen actually seeing each other, with TK being in such a life-threatening situation. Now, I read an article about 911 Lone Star, and the article stated about how it feels more like the Owen show than like a complete ensemble with the cast and everything. Now, for me, I do feel like a lot of the episodes tend to lead towards Owen more so than anything, but I don't think it's such a bad thing because he is the center of the 126. You know, like he's the one that kind of just brought all these people together to create the 126. Judd was already in Texas, but he brought Judd back from the verge of destruction because of losing his firehouse and all of his brothers. I don't know if they had any women at that time, but anyway, brothers and sisters in the explosion that started the very epic center of 911 Lone Star. And he brought Marjan, he brought Paul, he brought Proby, which is Mateo. He brought everybody, even TK, you know, came with his dad. He brought everybody around him. And you know, this show pretty much centers around him because he established the 126 after they lost all their core members. And I don't find it a little weird that, you know, a lot of the episodes tend to revolve around him, but I can kind of see where everybody else may kind of feel that way, you know, like, well, we don't want it to be completely the Owen show because some of the characters in this series are really great characters. And that's just something that when I read the article, I wanted to share with you guys. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like it's becoming the Owen show? Let me know. This episode was good, in my opinion, man. It still was the continuation, but we got a lot of stuff resolved this episode, if you will, because we see that Paul is in the hospital recovering, and Judd and Mateo came and check on him, and Lindsay's father and mother came to pay their respects and, you know, just to thank him for saving their daughter. And her father came out here and gave this man a a sheepskin blanket or whatever, or wool or whatever it was, and it looked super comfortable. I'm just being real. Then he gave him Rolexes, as Mateo would say, with an S. Yeah, that's multiple Rolexes, and he was trying to buy him a Maserati. And Mateo was like, I'll take it. And that's Mateo Chavez, if you want to just put that out there. It was nice, man, because they were so thankful. But like I always say, man, that's something that 911 brings to the table. What 911 Lone Star brings to the table, it gives you the seriousness, but it also sprinkles in just a little bit of comedy with it. We see that Grace is doing well at work. She hasn't had the baby or anything like that. And they gave her like a brief little baby shower. They gave her some gifts and some cupcakes, and they have a betting pool on when she's going to actually have the baby. Now, normally I would save this towards the end of the episode, but I just had to kind of get it out there because it's weighing heavy on my heart. We see that Billy went to talk to Grace this episode so he can try to get his friendship back with Judd. And we see a lot of stuff this episode that where I thought Grace was actually her water was actually going to break and she was going to go into labor, but that wasn't the case this entire episode until towards the end, where we see that she's talking to Billy and he angers her and, you know, and make her, you know, a little more stressful than she normally is, and her water breaks. And now she has to try to go to the hospital. She can't contact Judd, and she has to go to the hospital with Billy because he got in the car. And I'm glad that he got in the car because she doesn't need to be alone. But it's Billy, man. But I will admit that he can finally own up to the fact that the reason why he shut down the 126 is because he was jealous of Owen and the way that Owen rebuilt the 126, and how like everyone kind of just, you know, put all their eggs in the Owen basket and they really just love Owen. But Billy, man, oh my gosh, Billy, you do something to me, Billy. Oh, he annoys me. But now we see that him and Grace is stuck and she's in labor. Her water done broke. So I'm hoping that she doesn't have to have the baby in the car, but I don't see them getting out of it. So they may have to have the baby in the car unless they can get a hold of Judd. So we'll have to see how tonight's episode does and go from there. Let's talk about Owen. Because, like I said in the beginning of the video, you know, it felt like the Owen show for a lot of people. But Owen highlights a lot of different things for me because he brought all of these people together, and now we get to see them having their own lives individually, but it kind of, they want him in their lives, if you know what I mean. But anyway, we see Owen saving all of the people that was brought there by the coyote, even saving the coyote himself. Like, I love the little part where he kind of tricked him with the money and then he kind of headbutted him. But we see that Owen's trying to save all these people. They finally get back to his cabin, which was a short hike. But we also see that Marjan has woken up and she's trying to find her way back to Owen because she's trapped out here in this snowstorm. But we also come in contact with a crooked sheriff. Now, I'm going to be 100%. I knew the sheriff was, or the sheriff's deputy or whatever, I knew something was off a little bit about him because he's the only one that's still roaming around out here in the middle of nowhere where they don't have staff like they normally would, and everything's being busy because it's such a huge snowstorm, and he's the only one that he's still riding around out here. So of course he was looking for these people, and we find out that it was super cliche, but he was in fact working with the coyotes to transport these people illegally and then use them for manual labor. And he got his just desserts because Marwani and aka Marjan teamed up with Owen to take him down and beat him up, and then the people helped. So it was a nice little concept to wrap around that, and I really enjoyed that. And it didn't really just feel like the Owen show to me. I don't know about how anybody else feels, but it didn't feel like that because Owen helps people, but like they also help him in turn, if you will, if you kind of understand what I'm saying. Now, let's talk about TK. We see that TK, this episode, is kind of just trapped in his consciousness, if you will. He's having a momentary lapse of judgment or something, because I don't know what's going on, because he sees his mom and they're having a whole blast and having fun time in his mind, but she's telling him that he needs to fight, but he doesn't want to fight. He wants to stay there with her. Now, I'm starting to realize that he realizes that it's not real in instances, and then he kind of just snaps back into it, and he was like, who cares? So I'm going to stay here. Now, what I don't want them to do is kill TK off, because TK's been in a lot of dire situations, and he's been in the hospital more than anybody. And you're telling me the one that might do him in is being catching severe hypothermia from saving a kid? And we see that Tommy is feeling like horrible because she feels like it's her fault that TK is in this predicament. And I don't agree at all, because TK was going to save that kid no matter what. That's what him and the whole 126 do. They'll put themselves on the line to save someone. And that's why we love them. So she doesn't have to blame herself. But now she feels horrible because she can't get a hold of Owen, and then she's going to have to tell Owen that TK is actually really on the verge of dying. And she wants to be there for him because he was there for her when she lost her husband on her worst and most horrible day. But she talks to Grace and try to tell her that, I feel this way, but Owen was there for me, so I got to be there for him. But she feels that she's causing Owen's worst and most horrible day by sending his son in to save that kid. But TK was going to do it anyway. And I feel bad because Carlos just looks plumb miserable, man, because him and TK, they broke up, they had a fight. We don't know what about, and I don't want to speculate, but we see that this moment is just driving poor Carlos insane, man. He can't really fathom what to do. Not so much that he can't live his life without TK, but he just can't understand what's happening, and he doesn't want this to be, them having their whole tiff to be the last thing that him and TK kind of have together. He wants to reconcile, and this showcases that in this episode very heavily, because we see that TK he's very close to dying. Overall, man, like I said, I enjoyed the episode, and I can't wait for tonight's episode. Since I'm back in the swing of things, I'm going to try to put it up very early, so we'll see how that goes. This is your boy, Dick Incredible, man. Don't forget to smash the like button until you can't smash it anymore. Comment down below, and I'll be sure to respond to each and every one of them, and subscribe, but only if you really want to, man. Peace out.
I cannot to win my fame.